I don't care what you look like or what you think. I don't care what you do or where you're from. All I care about is that gift hidden inside you. And all I want to do is help it come alive. Because where we're going, we're going to need a lot of heroes. For the record, 10,000 Heroes is brought to you by Momentum Lab. The point of Momentum Lab is to turn idealists into impactors by aligning your dreams and aspirations with success in every area of your life today. Momentum Lab is like a playground for your highest self. We take your dreams seriously and help you remove any blocks to realizing them. We do this through courses, virtual events, in-person events, and our signature year-long accelerator. To join our world, engage in dialogue, meet up in person, and just blow your mind, sign up at momentumlab.com. Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is 10,000 Heroes, and I'm your host, Ankur Shah. And today, I finally wisened up a little bit. I realized I had access to this respected elder, Jeff Salzman, who's been on the show a few times. And just like John Giuliano, who's also been on the show, or some of our other guests, I just feel so honored to have the counsel of these people. And I decided to use, it's actually a kind of corruption, I decided to use this professional context for my personal gain, which is to ask for advice. And so this is about integrating a healthy response to conflict, which Jeff places on the red spectrum in his integral map, into our daily lives, and specifically my daily life. And this is going to be an ongoing journey, I imagine, unless I can solve it instantaneously. So here is episode 1. Okay, last time you're like, hey, if you have anything you need to work through, let's work through it. And so I was thinking about it last night, and I was like, I do have some things I want to work through. Cool. And so this is part of my personal journey, but I think it's also relevant to this concept of integrating different stages of development, different worldviews, different teachings. And so for me, as a person who was educated in math and philosophy, and then discovered more of basically got exposed to Chomsky in college and got kind of blown out of just the simple like rational optimization knowledge mindset into understanding how our actions affect different people, and everyone has different perspectives on it. And then later, through my 20s and 30s, doing a lot of travel, experiencing mysticism and integrating kind of some mystical truth alongside my like rational inquiry. And then more recently, wanting to learn from these traditional societies and traditional structures. I feel like I've been doing my best to integrate some of these different worldviews that you talk about. But the one that I probably have made the least progress on, or still actively reject, is this the I don't know how to describe it. You have better language for it, but I'm just going to call it anger. And so these basic emotions that can be violent, and that I just to stereotype myself a little bit or pigeonhole myself, I tend to lump it in with toxic masculinity and just like power at all costs. And so I've distanced myself from that to the point where I think I'm missing something. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if that's something.
Yeah.
How would you translate that? And how would you, what experiments can I run?
Yeah.
To help me.
Yeah. Well, what I think you're talking about, if again, just to use the integral maps of development here in this case, this is, anger resides in that red strata.
Yeah.
It's pre-traditional on the integral map, if you will. It's what we sometimes call a warrior stage of development. It's egocentric. It's, it sort of feasts on anger. The upside, all of these worldview, it's a worldview, and it's actually a strata that continues to be alive in all of us who have, built and evolved strata on top of it, so to speak. And a lot of times we want to repress that red stage.
Yeah,
But,
I
it's,
studied meditation and Buddhism, and I'm
yeah,
doing these psychedelic journeys to get out of that ego
yeah,
thing, right?
yeah, right. Yeah. But you can't. You just can't. I mean, it's still there. And thank God, because that's also where our juice resides. That's also where the passions and just the I amness, of life. The I, Jeff, you anchor. We are, and we are slivers of, the almighty, whatever. And I want to be seen. I want to be heard. I want to participate. I have life force, So that's the upside of red. Playful also, has a lot of fun. And that's, I've been in the Buddhist world for a long time, and they have fun, but, it's funny, there's a dampening of both when,
Mhm.
you think meditation is some means of getting you out of that whole situation of having to deal with red. So we have to deal with red. Red is a big problem. Red's a big problem in our own mind, body, and meme stack, if you will. And it's also a huge problem in culture and geopolitically. And that's just where we are, you know. And this integral solution is not to repress red or explain it away or therapize it away in a certain way. To the degree that therapy is just about opening and seeing and feeling, yes, that kind of therapy we want, so that we can welcome red in with our eyes open and know what it is. It's the horse we're riding, and it's not tame. You
Mhm.
know, and then we work with it from there.
So what does a healthy integration of red look like for
for modern adults.
Yeah, I think I think it includes rudeness. Actually, I always like a line that Scott Peck, who wrote The Road Less Traveled, said. He said, "A gentleman is somebody who never offends another person unintentionally." So there's that. There's a willingness to get into conflict. If particularly at this certain stage of green, this sort of pacifist, and that's a healthy stage of green that looks back in human history and says no more fighting. And it really has a lot of allergies to conflict and personal conflict. You sort of put that in its own context and realize that there is a way of healthy fighting. It's kind of like, and I'll go back to Buddhism. It's like a Zen master hitting you over the head with a stick, or hitting you on the shoulder or whatever they do. Uh, th- it's not supposed to hurt. It's supposed to wake you up, and they're not there to enjoy doing it. They're just doing it as in service of you. So there's a new way of thinking about conflict that I'm just working on myself, because I'm very conflict averse. I have very much that green sickness of, I'm just not going to go there. So I think that's part of what a healthy red is like. And, if I think of examples, well, in a way, pop music, rock music, that's strutting, the bling bitches, that kind of thing. That's red, and that's healthy in a way, to the degree that it's an expression of that part of the psyche non-violently. That's the key with red, is that the bright line with red is violent versus non-violent red.
Mhm.
So a lot of sports, particularly you get into these blood sports like boxing and that kind of thing, that those are expressions, healthy expressions, I guess, of red. I think we're growing out of, beating each other's brains out. But that's a stage of development. We used to play soccer with the heads of our enemies, back in the day. And then we did goats' heads for a couple of millennia. And then we developed balls. There's a stage of development where you wake up in the morning and your job is to fight your enemy. It's a warrior stage of consciousness and development. It's healthy. It's you can see it in people who are in a certain way arrested at that stage. We were just talking earlier about Trump and the Trump election. He operates from a red, who am I going to fight today? If I'm not fighting, I don't feel alive. And I think I know a couple people in my life that if they weren't fighting, they didn't feel alive. They just caused a lot of conflict. And in a way, or even I'm thinking of one particular friend, became sort of skillful at it in a way where she used conflict as a way of unfreezing things. And then she put them back together again. There's a certain, I don't know, there's an intelligence around, the skillful use of red that I'm still working on myself. I'm just pointing out that that's the project.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Big part of the Integral Project.
Yeah, skillful use of conflict. Yeah, it reminds me of some of the mediation people I've had on this show. Maybe go back to them and talk about that. I like that. And then what happens if I don't, or if we don't? Like if we repress it, how does that show up?
Well, that it's like, it gets up and starts driving the bus one way or the other. So you're going to lose it. I think a lot of people, if you think about the sort of anxiety and depression that, is often pointed out as just sort of the flavor of our times, one might say that's a repressed anger. In a way, it's a repressed life force. I'm pretty sure of that. I think our grandchildren are going to look back on us and see us as the frozen people, in a way. They're going to, see our limitations in the way that we would look at the Victorians, or we look at people, 200 years ago and think, wow, look at the straitjackets they had to live in. So, part of that blossoming and flourishing of the next human is going to be fun, playful, and, even with sex. Sex is juicier when there's a domination submission. Human beings know domination and submission. There's a part of us that's how it should be. That's how it was for most of history. That we talk about how the different stages of worldview divide the world. And one of the ways of looking at red is that red divides the world between dominator, and submitter. And that was true geopolitically and culturally. But it's also true, there's a part of us that vibes with that. And, if we could play with that, we're safely in a higher structure of modernity and, self-respect and other respect, as I've sometimes said, we're going to be riding each other like ponies, in the sacred world to come,
Yeah. Okay. So let me see if I understand that. It's almost like we all have that history in us, both individually and socially. And now one way of integrating it is almost to like wink at it in the way I'm listening to a hip hop song and there's this awesome sample from Parliament or Diana Ross or something that happened 40 years ago. And it's just like, it's not the same thing, but they're referencing it and winking at it and playing with it in a way of acknowledging its role.
Yeah. 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 No, one of the main markers of red is playful and winking. Think of a toddler, think of a 3 or 4 year old, or 2-year-old. I mean, that's that sort of, to the degree that we can layer that onto individual development, that's what you're just alive to the world, and only, as adults, we can reference the past, and we have, I would just emphasize that, yes, playful, that's one of the big upsides and markers of red that we're just beginning to get, and we're all very tentative about it, I think, particularly socially. And that's probably appropriate at this stage too.
Fantastic.
So how do you see it? I mean, what do you think? How do you see it? Like, what happens when you do it? What happens when you don't? Or how's it showing up for you? And, or what do you observe in the culture?
Yeah. So for me personally, there's two things, maybe it's kind of the same thing that come to mind. One is with competition. And I noticed in myself a tendency to avoid competition, I think when I think I'm not going to win specifically, but that kind of generalizes to like, oh, let's just not be competitive because competition is bad. It's a zero-sum game. It's not uplifting to everyone involved. And as I say that, there's a lot of truth to that. I think that is true, but I am missing something. And so, and I play different racket sports mostly, and I'll notice that in a competitive part, like near the end of a game, or if it's tied and I'm at like an equal skill level with someone, I'll feel this rush of adrenaline. And I'm not in general, I'm not like a sports person, so I'm not that familiar with this rush of adrenaline. And I know intellectually that that is meant to help me win the game. It's like a superpower that's coming in. But because I haven't trained in this and I'm avoiding competition for a lot of my life, it's quite destabilizing. And I experience it the same way I drink. I don't really drink coffee. And if I drink coffee, especially an espresso without milk or anything, I'm just like wrecked for hours. I can't focus on anything. It's like this God-given power is coming through me and I don't know how to use it. And it's the same thing with the adrenaline. And I'll lose every time. If I get the adrenaline rush, I just choke and I lose.
And then you'll lose.
Yeah.
Then you go on to lose.
Totally. I just choke. The adrenaline comes and I choke.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
And so that's I think, I don't know if it's maybe it's literal, maybe it's not a metaphor, but it's this idea of like, that's access to this other kind of energy that I'm not used to dealing with. And it's literally in the game, it's playful. Like it's like we're playing a game, and it's not even like a blood sport. It's just a silly game with rackets and a ball. It's just totally, it's comic, right? That humans are doing this stuff. And I'm unable to take advantage of this energy, this level of development to my advantage. Yeah. And in fact, it becomes a disadvantage.
Yeah. Well, that is huge progress, Anchor. You go from unconscious incompetence where that just happens, you don't know why, blah, 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 blah. Now you see it. You have a conscious incompetence, right?
Yeah.
So next is a conscious competence. Right. So, you just keep doing it and keep seeing it. And, wisdom does arise. It just, you get smarter as you see it. In a way, that's burning the karma of maybe 10,000 lifetimes. I don't know. Something like that, maybe. And then you get to unconscious competence. You just have a bigger, more powerful anchor just right there, available all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's not afraid to cut his opponent's head off metaphorically with a racket.
Yeah.
How lucky are we that we get to not actually have to cut their heads off?
Yeah.
Considering human history.
Yeah.
And the actual red stage of development when it was all that was online. Not pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. But fun. They were having a good time in a certain way.
Yeah, I probably. I don't know.
They were. Yeah.
Sure, they were drinking all kinds of inspiring concoctions that led to that as well.
Yes. Going out for fights and, at that stage, that is life itself. So anyway, not to overdraw that point, but I do love what you're talking about, and I feel it myself as well, and I think that is one of the areas that a lot of people who have some, integral capacity are working with. They're trying to bring back online some of the things that Green eliminate: hierarchy in general, holarchy, if you will, healthy hierarchy, domination and submission, in a way, competition, call it that. Where it's online and available and fun and doesn't, it doesn't take us over. We're still in charge of it. A bigger we.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's it. That's development. We're just getting, bigger. We're growing. We're aware of more. I always loved Ken Wilber's definition of stages of consciousness, and that is what you're able to be aware of. It's really pretty amazing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. That was great.
Awesome.
Yeah. Really clarifying. And so I guess I'll just gonna I'm just going to continue running experiments, right? And building.
Yeah, totally. No, I love this. And it doesn't have to take forever. And I think that was a really, important point and right on point with where a lot of people are, including me.
Yeah. Fantastic. That's great. It reminds me, I have a friend who was on the podcast like in the first season. He's a professor at Carnegie Mellon now and wrote his undergraduate thesis on Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and maybe like Heidegger or something. But it'd be really interesting to talk to him about, get him on the show, have him listen to this and talk to him about nonviolence, because there's this real confusion with nonviolence and passivity.
Yeah.
And like kind of getting his like historian's take on the role of anger and red in Gandhi and Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Because I think part of my my issue is like identifying as a pacifist, right? Mm-hmm. And then that leading to this like avoidance of conflict. But that's not what Gandhi was doing,
Right.
He was creating a lot of conflict, but non-violently.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And another way you can look at this through the integral map is the idea of we live in a reality of gross material reality, of subtle energy reality, thought, ideas, ideologies, of spiritual reality. So, we could just look at those three. We can look at evolution is the process of organisms, and particularly in our case, human beings, fighting their way at the physical level. They were just fighting the other tribe because they were on the other side of the hill and competing in some way. If they weren't competing, they weren't necessarily fighting, but that was just the way of things for so much of human evolution. And it's not like that desire to fight as an end in itself actually goes away, but it's moved to the subtle realm. So now we fight on social media and we have ideological battles and we're merciless and we go for the jugular, but it's in this arena that's actually amazing. I mean, let's just pause for a moment and say, look at the arena we're fighting in now, instead of the one where we actually, have blood and guts. So, and I suppose, and I think it's even happening now, but there'll be a level in which we're fighting spiritually. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just that's how humanity will continue, and each of us will continue to grow. Because we keep testing ourselves and we keep, that's just built in and we got to be friends with it.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. This is Martin Stan, your producer, audio editor, and sound designer in chief for the 10,000 Heroes team. I just wanted to take a minute to thank you for listening to our show. Let me tell you a couple of things. 10,000 Heroes is brought to you by the team at Momentum Lab. Pierre does our artwork, DJ Plainview composed our theme music, and I handle all the editing, production, and sound design. And now we are closing this episode with a word from our main sponsor, who also happens to be our host, Anchor.
Hey, everybody. Thanks again for listening. If you like this episode, there's two things I want you to do. One, introduce me to the most inspiring person you know so I can have them on the show. And two, take the next step towards us hanging out in person. Maybe that's signing up for the newsletter. Maybe that's attending an upcoming in-person or virtual event. What I'm trying to do here is destroy the basic one-to-many nature of this medium, podcast, entertainment, and replace it with something that actually builds connections between people, the beloved community, getting closer together, understanding each other, one conversation at a time. So, join me. Bye!